Hi, good afternoon. We wanted this to be more of a dialogue or discussion. So each of us is kind of gonna go through and introduce ourselves, talk more about our role, and then really want to spend more of the time kind of opening it up to talk with folks who are also wondering, what's next. So I'm Jessica. I'm one of the social workers in the AYA clinic. I focus on a lot of the psychosocial needs with patients who are on active treatment as well as those who are in long-term survivorship. I focus on the mental health piece, so helping them get connected to resources, coping, also getting folks connected to resources within our clinic. There's a lot of overlap in our roles, I think, and that's where collaborative care is really important. Some of the things I've seen with survivorship, a lot of it has to do with grief, processing things that happened, or processing ideas, dreams that may not come to fruition because of treatment or because of side effects or risk factors. Also, a lot of trauma. I've sat on other panels and done other discussions with survivors, and a lot of them, what they have to share, and having undergone a lot of medical care, a lot of procedures, a lot of treatment, especially at a young age, is how it's impacted them in adulthood, and how I think growing up, that impacted social relationships in school, with peers, with parents, with caretakers. And a lot of what they describe, I think in my experience, touches on a lot of trauma. And so that is something that I've seen come up. So I think for survivors, making sure that you have a great sense of, you have a good community. And I think that's one of the things our clinic has to offer our patients, is a way of connecting with one another, to be able to speak with people who understand the language. They may not have been in the exact same, with the exact same diagnosis and treatment plan, but they understand, they can relate to that, is very important. Also, unfortunately, there's a lot of self-advocating that has to happen, especially with survivorship. Sometimes it's educating your healthcare providers. If you're having to, that's kind of the challenge I've seen with survivors, is switching from being on active treatment to now, okay, you're going to go back to your primary care doctor, but there's a lot of things that are pretty nuanced. And so sometimes, unfortunately, it is having to advocate with providers. Haley and Heather will talk more about how they've had to help patients, or not patients, but survivors, advocate in other realms, whether it is medical side, whether it's vocational. So those are just some of the anecdotes that I've observed, and how I help folks in my role.
Okay. I'm Heather. I'm the vocational counselor. So I have a really unique position to get to work with our young adult and adolescent survivors, in that I talk with them about their workplace and college, just navigating that, because it's a lot of times our young adults, that's their first career. So they haven't really worked with how to address like taking leave time and what that really means, as well as college. Dealing with treatment and side effects. It's a very interruption in their life, obviously. So we talk a lot about just what were their goals and how to help them get there, with kind of the things of navigating that next step. So there's a lot of things that we kind of touch base on. I start with them like understanding their maybe educational history and their work history, and then just work towards like, what were their goals when they left school? Where were they trying to head towards? And then whether they are able to like navigate that, and I can kind of help support that and be a best step of like where to go next. They have, to me, it's like, it's hard to know what you don't know. So they really don't know even the questions to ask me. So I like to just plant some seeds on, have you considered this? Have you thought through these things? What to expect? For example, like I mentioned, if they're in their first career, they probably haven't taken any kind of leave. So what is their FAME medical leave options? What are their rights and laws in place to protect them when that kind of like that comes up for them? And also with college, they could be, there's different treatment related, like school loan deferment. So have they considered that? Is it something they need to look into? They probably haven't been told that could be a possible option for them. As well as maybe they need to medically withdraw from college, or a big thing as well with workplace navigating and college is accommodations, and what that really means. A lot of times when we start talking, they have in mind like accommodations could be more mobility or visually impaired accommodations, but actually there's some academic accommodations for those that are in college that include like having extended time in test. So we just kind of talk through where they are, what's going to be best for them and the time that they are in that moment. So you can hear, obviously my job is very unique. I'm so thankful that MD Anderson does recognize that this is such a very big part of, life in navigating that. And so, it's something you don't really hear about, that we have that as a resource, like Jessica's mentioning, is how much we collaborate our patients together. Just as a vocational counselor, there is a lot of counseling involved in that. It's a very emotional time when they talk about their goals for work or even college and how much it's an interruption. So I have a background in social work, so I'm a counselor, and so that we do talk a lot about just where they are, like you said, and the other things, the topics that Jessica mentioned as a social worker that we also work through to help them get to a better support for them.
Thank you all for allowing us to be here. My name's Haley. I am one of the clinical providers in our AYA clinic, and I have the opportunity to see patients that are beginning treatment, on treatment, and then in the survivorship phase. So for this talk specifically, it's the survivorship phase. We also see pediatric survivors. So it's not just our classic AYA age range of 15 to 39 that I will see survivors. I will see anybody, any age, who is a pediatric child cancer survivor. So they could be a 5-year-old who is a survivor of whatever type of cancer they had, or they could be a 56-year-old who had some sort of a pediatric cancer. The beauty in that is that I have a pretty broad spectrum of what we are looking for. And so when I see my patients and they come to our survivorship clinic, the first thing I do, of course, I'm asking them how they're doing. I, of course, do a physical exam. But what I really try to do is a good head-to-toe assessment, asking them about potential long-term side effects. And some of these are side effects that they have never even heard of. So for instance, are you even getting your eyes checked by an eye doctor? Well, no, nobody told me I needed to, but I'm, 25. Oh yeah, you're right. I can't see the board anymore in school. Oh, maybe I should have done that, So based on the treatment that they had, they may be more susceptible to getting cataracts or glaucoma or other issues with the eyes. And so I start literally as simple as that. Are you seeing an eye doctor? Are you having any difficulty hearing? When you listen to AirPods or any type of headphones, are you listening to the volume all the way up? Have you noticed over the years that your volume is increasing and increasing and increasing, and people look at you because they can also hear what you're listening to? Well, maybe you do have hearing impairment. And that could absolutely be related to treatment. So I also look at what treatment they've had. And we do know known side effects from certain treatments. And so looking at those treatments, what are those potential long-term side effects? And so I basically kind of go all the way down the body, asking my patients if they have any deficits, and if they do, how can we fix them, address them? I think for me, some of the biggest things that I see that are missed is fertility, especially if my patients had some sort of treatment as a pediatric patient or as a young adult, even 10 years ago. In most cases, fertility was never addressed. And I think that that can be a very heartbreaking topic for my patients, specifically my females who have dreams of becoming a mom one day, only to find out that they're completely infertile. And so that is where I lean on my colleagues for counseling and discussing, hey, this isn't the end. We have other options, and really getting our patients connected to our clinic. So for any of you out there, if you guys are patients who had any type of a desmoid tumor or any other type of cancer for that matter, you guys are currently in remission more than 2 years out. I'm always happy to see you if you're in the AYA age range and where we see patients who even had treatment not at MD Anderson. And so we talk a lot about like the possible physical side effects, but then, and these potential long-term factors. And we also make sure that we're screening our patients for potential cancers and other health issues that can pop up over time. So making sure our patients' cholesterol is well managed and all of these kind of things that you would think are kind of older folks' problems. But yeah, you don't want to be 20 years old and then have heart failure because nobody ever paid attention to anything or told you that you need to be exercising and things like that. And then we also make sure our patients are up to date on vaccines, and we focus a lot on getting the HPV-9 vaccine, as we know that that puts our patients at a higher risk of developing head and neck cancers, penile cancers, gynecological cancers, and anal-rectal cancers. Yeah. So we kind of want to open it up and ask you guys what you guys have questions about. Don't be shy. We're going to be nice today.
So I'm actually a medical oncologist with an interest in AYA patients. And what I found from some of the patients I take care of with desmoid tumors is that they don't feel that they quite fit our cancer center resources and almost feel a sense of guilt when they hear other people's stories. And so with something so rare where our numbers are just not enough to have separate groups, how do you recommend us counseling our patients on utilizing the great resources we have that might not be precisely tailored to patients with desmoid tumors?
Yeah, I think from a medical standpoint, a lot of patients with desmoid tumors don't think that they fit into the survivorship standpoint, especially if their tumor type happens to be the kind that comes back over time. Or it's just so low grade that maybe they didn't require chemo or this massive surgery and they're just on observation. But that doesn't make you any less deserving of survivorship care. Survivorship care doesn't mean you have to be in remission and cured of your cancer. I see patients who still have active cancer. It doesn't mean that you don't need a mammogram or you don't need a colonoscopy or whatever the cancer screening is, just because your cancer is low grade. So I think really educating our patients that survivorship care doesn't have to be black and white. And then really for psychosocial reasons, I can understand, patients have a hard time connecting with others, especially if they think that everybody else is in remission and they're in a curative state. And that's where I kind of get both Heather and Jessica involved.
Yeah, what I would say is we have quite a mix in AYA, and I facilitate our patient support group, which meets twice a month. And so what I love about that is it brings in patients that have so many different diagnoses. They're not all of them are patients at MD Anderson. They just are of the adult, young adult population. They find out about our support groups. They're on Zoom, they're open. But folks, in varying degrees of their journey. So some who are newly diagnosed, some who are long-term survivors. It's very interesting. And I think, again, that sense of community is really great in that the community is so welcoming that they don't necessarily see that differentiation. They're like, no, but you're dealing with something that, yes, I have an inoperable brain tumor and it's been, there's been no changes in it, but so somebody who's not necessarily on active treatment, but is sort of in that wait and watch, or folks who've had thyroid cancer and, they've had people tell them, oh, you've got like the good cancer they just removed it. But they're still dealing with a lot of ongoing long-term side effects, and there's still other risk factors, or there's always that fear of recurrence. And so I think that is where every person's journey is unique. And there are certainly folks within our clinic that come to AYA because it seems like they don't necessarily fit anywhere else. But then that's perfect because the community has just been very embracing that. They're like, well, we'll make you fit here. Like, it makes sense. But it can be challenging outside of that community and going to, other cancer centers, or also, just from a practical standpoint, there's a lot of need for resources. And it's hard when folks don't necessarily tick all of the eligibility requirements for those resources. And just because somebody completed treatment doesn't mean that the needs still aren't still there. They're dealing with perhaps long-term side effects, or there's a lot of other things that they're needing additional assistance with. And that's kind of that's what can be challenging in my role is sometimes there's just not resources available specific to address that. But otherwise, I think, again, the uniqueness of our clinic helps create a sense of community for all of the folks who kind of fit into that.
I would say it's such a great question because just to mention a few things, like there's just such a wide variety of different treatment modalities. So it could just be like watch and wait. It could be surgery, or whatever treatment. There are side effects, and there's recovery. So you could see how even in my role, I would talk a lot about those kind of things, if they are survivors from past, still they're dealing with other things they have questions about. So I can help navigate with that. I think that's why we have such a unique clinic, because of the resources, the things that we can offer, and talking through things and problem solve. A lot of times they may not know the question. That's why I work with them and just try to see, where are you? What kind of things can we consider? Where are they having the most challenges that I can kind of touch base and give them some tools and strategies to work through that in regards to school or work. So really, I think that's such a great time to go ahead and, talk with them about what we can offer, and talking through, because we're unique in that we can give them that time so they can talk through more a little bit with us.
Other questions? Don't be sure.
Or comments, or judgments.
So is a referral needed to access these services?
For me, no. So I actually do help patients that are not yet gone through our young adult adolescent clinic. I can just, it's just,
But you have to be an MD Anderson patient.
you have to be an MD Anderson patient. That's right, yes.
To see our clinic. However, we do have, it's publicly available, MD Anderson AYA, if you just Google that website. We have a calendar of events that is open for anybody in the AYA age range, so 15 to 39, although we kind of push up a little bit. And it's just a calendar of events. They're always free to our patients and caregivers. And on there is the link for our support groups, our patient support groups, our caregiver support groups. And then we do each month, it's a different in-person activity. So for instance, in the past, we've had a pickleball tournament. We went to the Dynamo game. Yoga. We walk at Herman Park when it's not 100 degrees.
So all those would not, like a non-cancer, a non-MD Anderson patient.
Can absolutely have access.
All those that.
Yep. And then we also have an AYA scholarship. I think you have to be an MD Anderson patient for that.
AYA scholarship, yes.
But we're always happy to help our patients get connected to resources. And then we also have a closed Facebook group for AYA patients. And you do not have to be an MD Anderson patient to join that. You do have to have a cancer diagnosis. And then of course, answer the questions on the Facebook, are you gonna bully somebody? No. Those kind of things. And then the Facebook group is all inclusive. And people, no, there's no topic that's off limits. People post all kinds of things. And so it's really just meant to be a supportive environment. Good question.
So in addition to the three of us, we have other medical providers. We have now, in the last year, we've gotten 2 therapists. So that's a brand new role within the clinic. There's another social worker as well. Our oncofertility specialist, Dr. Lori McKenzie, has clinic days twice a week. We have a registered dietitian, and it really is just interesting the amount of overlap. I mean, work and school is a major stressor. So while I can help on the coping side of, you know, they're having anxiety, they're feeling stressed out, problem solving, it's helpful to have, you know, Heather or other colleagues that I can refer patients to make sure that collectively we can get those needs addressed.